Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'll be helping you out in order to create a game with the help of the JavaScript. Okay, so in front of your screen, there is a game which is basically we know it as a snake game. Like how you need to create this particular game with the help of the JavaScript. I'll show you step by step. Okay, first of all, let's see how this game works. So when I use the right, up and left arrow keys in the keyboard, this game starts working, and the blue color box which you see on the screen, this is basically the snake which keeps on increasing when it eats the food. Okay, a simple game wherein you'll have the high score and you'll have the score as well, everything over there. Okay, now here how to start it. So with the help of the arrow keys, I move the arrow keys. So when I now move the arrow keys, I have to go ahead and eat the food. Okay, and if I like crush in the walls, then the game will be over. Okay, so now the game is over because I crashed in the wall. Okay, so now I again started, and when I eat it, then the snake will grow. Okay, now see the length increased for the snake, right? Same way we have to continue with the game, and like how big you can actually make it and how many food you can eat it. Okay, so this is how the whole game works. So we'll start off with the HTML, and then with the CSS, and then with the JavaScript. Okay, so you see, like, it keeps on increasing. Now when you crash it, the game will get over, and when you click on OK, then only it will start. Okay, now if you see, the high score is 4 and the score is 4, it's showing over here. Fine, so now let's go ahead and create it off. Okay, so I'll start off with the HTML. So here what things we need. So in the HTML we want like the header of the games. If you see the game properly, there should be a header like here, right here, snake game should come up, the score tab should come up, the high score, these things should come up. Okay, so in the HTML what we have to do, we have to create the layout of the game. Okay, and the most important thing, we have to put some data keys over there. Data keys means the left key, the right key, the up and down key, these will work. So that we will do it in HTML. Okay, so let's get started. So we'll start off with the doc type. So HTML. Okay, now here I'll write the title as snake game. Okay, I'll go very slowly so that you guys also can side by side do it yourself. You will be able to understand it more properly. Okay, and I'll also put the link as well, like for including the CSS and everything. So just underneath the meta, I'll put the link over here. So I'll write link and style sheet, and this I'll keep it as blank. So when I this style3.csv, this is .css, this is the place where I'll be adding the CSS, and then I'll include it inside the href, wherein style3.css will represent my CSS for this particular game. Okay, and next I'll also add some font text for that. So for that I'll take another link, and now inside the href I'll add the font. Okay, so you can also download the font from the Cloudflare if you want, and if you wish, you can download it, or you can copy the link from the description. I'll mention it in the description where you can copy the link, which is basically for the font. Okay, whatever font you see on this particular game, that means this one and this one, those font will come up from the Cloudflare Ajax links. Okay, that's the second thing. Next, what we have to do, we also need to add a script for it, right? So we can keep the script for now. Okay, and the name we can add it later on, so I'll just write script, and then sure, inside the type, and sure, I'll keep it as blank so that I can add the source as well. Okay, so I'll write source and I'll keep this as blank. Fine. Now next thing is, like, we have to put in the body, inside the body what things we have to do. So if you see on the game carefully, so we need to have this particular box wherein the score comes up, the high score comes up. Okay, and we also need to add the data keys, that is the left key, right key, up, down, these keys should also come up. Okay, so here let's move on to the body section and then start adding it. Okay, so in the body section, first of all, in order to create that particular box in game, so I'll be using wrapper for it. Okay, so div class, I'll be using the wrapper. So I'll write div, and then inside class I'll write wrapper. Okay, which will help me to create the main layout for the game. Okay, and inside this I'll write div class details. Okay, that means let's say the game details. Okay, and then inside this, now what two things we have to create? We have to create the score and we also have to create the high score, right? So for creating these two, I'll include it inside the span. Okay, so what we can do, we can write span, and then inside the class we can include the high score and score. Okay, so I'll write span, and then inside this I'll write span class. Okay, and inside the class you can mention as score, ensure score. Okay, and same thing, we can also mention it for the high score. So span, and then class you can mention as high score. Okay, and here we can write high score. Right? See, so it will start from 0, right? And then the span gets closed. Okay, so these things we have done. Now what we can do, we can close off the div, right? Fine. Now once this is done, next is we have to go for the keys, that is the left key, down key, right, and up key. Okay, we have to create these keys as well, so that in our game those keys are functional. We can make those keys functional with the JavaScript, and we can design those keys with the help of CSS. Okay, so here what we have to do next is we have to create the playboard. That means how the playboard should look like, something like this. This is our playboard, this particular part, the whole black part, this is the playboard, right? And here inside the playboard the key should be there, right? That means the controls, like how will you play the game, that controls should be there. So here next what we will do, we will just open a div, and it should have a class as, let's say, playboard. Okay, fine, and then we move on with the controls. So I'll write div class and then controls. Okay, and then we move on with the data keys. So for that what you have to do, you have to use I. Okay, I tag, with the help of which you can add data keys to it. So I'll write data keys. Okay, and my first will be of arrow left. Okay, that means the left arrow. So arrow left, I write it. Fine, and I'll take the class, and inside this particular class what you have to do, I have to make the shape like how the arrow should look like. So for that we can take solid. Okay, and should be like left, and it should be long. Okay, now these things, how these things can come up, these things can come up from the Ajax font awesome, which link which we have taken. This will be directly included over here. Now what we can do, we can just close this one, and then next similar thing we need to do it for right, for up, and for down keys as well. Okay, so let's copy this off, paste it. Okay, and just change these. So left, I'll create it for up. Okay, this I'll change it to up, and then let's say right. Okay, and the last left out is left, up, right. These are done. Now down. Okay, and this you can create, change it. Now fine, now these things are done. Okay, so basically we have the playboard now, and we also have the controls. That means the keys like the up key, right key, left key, and the down key. These things are there with us. Okay, now close off the divs and everything. So this needs to be closed over here. Okay, now let's go ahead and save this off, and then we need to check out basically how it looks like. So we'll just refresh this. So when I refresh this, if you see at the top, it says score 0, high score 0, and these are the arrow keys which we wanted. Okay, that means left, right, up, and down. So now these we have in our HTML. Okay, now we have to make this functional. We have to give it a design so that it looks like a game, and at the end we also want to make add on the JavaScript which makes our game functional as well. Okay, so first of all we will give a CSS to it so that we get a proper game like look. Okay, so when we give the CSS, we need to give the CSS for these divs, that is the wrapper. We have to give it for the playboard, for the controls and everything, right? So next we go ahead and start off with the CSS. Fine. So for the CSS, we have a file that is style3.css which I have made. So here, let's say I start off first with importing the Google fonts, okay, which you can also import it. So I'll take Google font. Okay, and how to import it, I'll use @ and import. Okay, so it will be in a form of a URL, that is why import URL. Now you can take any font which you wish, you can take it from the Google font APIs. Okay, so this I'm taking, you can also take this one, or you can also take other of your choice. Okay, so my basically the family for the font will be sans, right, and this is the weightage of it. Fine. Now next what we have to do is we have to start it, right? So first of all we'll start off with start. That means we need to give the margin to our game, right, the playboard and everything. So I'll give the margin as 0. I'll take some padding. Okay, then I'll take some size for my box in which my game is there. So for that I'll go with the box sizing. Okay, so inside the box sizing I'll just mention like border the box. Okay, and then the font family. So font family, since I said I have taken it as sans, so I'll take it as open sans and sans serif. Okay, this is done. Now next we need to come up with the body part. The game should come up in the form of a flex, right? So for that let's do the CSS. So inside this you can mention the display. Okay, and after the display flex, we go off with like we want to align it, right? So we want to align the items like the score and the high score. Okay, so in the align items, we want it in the center. So I'll write as center. Okay, and after the align item, we need to justify the contents. It should be in center. Okay, and stuffs. You can adjust it according to your requirement, according to your need. Okay, so I'll put as this. You can make changes to it. Okay, and background, since we want it as a black color, like the you know, so it should be, let's say the whole background should be white and only the gaming should look like in a black color. Okay, so for that, let's do it. Okay, now the body part is done. Next we move on to the wrapper part, right? So for that we write wrapper. Okay, now inside the CSS for wrapper, so we need the width, we need height, weight, display, overflow, everything we need. Okay, so okay, height, also write overflow, and it should be like hidden. Okay, because the gaming black portion, that is the black background, should come up on the top of the white background, right? So the overflow should be hidden. Okay, now the flex direction should be like a column wise, like you know it should not be horizontal, vertical. So we'll use the flex direction and we'll set it up to column. Okay, and after this we will also justify the contents of the flex. That means it should be center. Okay, now these are done. Fine. After this there should be some border also to the flex. Okay, so let's say I put border radius. Okay, and I take the radius as 5 px. Next we move on to the background. So we need to set up the background right over here. That means the previous background that was for body, that means it should be white. Now we are working on the wrapper wherein our game itself will be there, that's of black color, right? So here the background should be black. So let's put up the background, that is okay. The background is done, and now we also want to put some shadow to it, right? So the box shadow, so that means let's say it's now again you can change it according to your requirement. Okay, and RGBA, so we keep it like this. Okay, now these are done. Next we move on to the gaming details, like for the game details. Fine. So how to understand the CSS, for what you have to make the CSS, so you can make it from here, like the HTML which you have written. So we have done it for the wrapper, now we have to do it for the game details, right? Similarly we have to go for the score, for high score, for playboard, and then for the controls, right? For all these we need to write the CSS, so that now we can see the game actually in our web browser. Okay, so next we have to go for the game details, so we'll write game details. Okay, and inside the game details we'll set up some color. Okay, some color, some background to it. Okay, some font size, some paddings and all. Okay, so I'll give some font weight. Let's see, the font weight I give it as 500. Okay, then the padding, So let's say the padding, I keep it as 27 px. Again, you can change it according to your wish. Display, again, it should be in a form of a flex, and then the justify content, it should be like there should be some space in the side of it, right, as we saw. And then the font size, so the font size, let me keep it as 1.2. okay, now this is done for the game details. Now next we come on to the playboard, right? So playboard also the CSS needs to be done, so we'll write playboard. Okay, and for the playboard we'll adjust the height first of all. So let's say the height, I'll keep it as 100%, and then we move on with the width. Okay, so width, this also keep it as 100%, and then let's say I give some display. Okay, right, it should be in the form of a grid, some background. Okay, so fine, and I also put some grid template. Okay, so the template should repeat itself, right? It's like with the whole thing. So this I'll keep it as it is, and sure, just change it off. Yeah, so now this is fine. Next, what is left out? Next we go on with the, okay, this is done. So next we go on with what? Okay, now we have the playboard as well, so we have to do the CSS for the playboard. So we'll write playboard. Okay, and this is for food. Okay, since we have done it for the playboard, so we also want to do the CSS for the food, right? What food the snake will eat, for that we also do the CSS. Okay, so let's say I set the background. That means now the background is like for the box, right, the red and blue box, right? So we have to set for that. So let's say it's here, this I set it as food. Okay, next thing what you have to do is you have to go ahead with the playboard head. Okay, so I will write playboard, and here I just give some background to it so that the score and the high score comes up over here, right? So let me put some background. Okay, now you can change it according to your choice. Okay, next comes up with the controls, right? The right key, the left key, these things. So we have to give the CSS for them as well. So for the controls we have to do the padding. Okay, like for the right key, for left key, so like 20 px. Okay, now the text alignment should be in the center. Okay, what else? We can go ahead with some font size, and we can also put some width, right? So this I'll keep it as 1.3, and okay, so we give some width. So this will calculate actually the width. Okay, and let me divide it by 4. You can take 2 or you can take 10 according to like how you can determine like what kind of box it should look like, what should be the width of the box which comes up, wherein you can place the game actually, right? And then the cursor, so cursor should be in the form of a pointer, fine, and the border. So see, CSS is all like how you actually visualize it, and then you have to put it here in CSS. Okay, so first visualization is important, like how, suppose here in our case, how the game should look like. Okay, so that visualization should be important, and then you can, put that visualization or into here in your CSS. Okay, now these things are done. Now next thing, which is the most important, that is the media screen. That needs to be done, right? Wherein like the wrapper which we have, the game wrapper comes up in the middle of the screen, right? So for that we write @media screen. Okay, and we write, I give the maximum width, let's say I take it as 800 pixels. Okay, and for the wrapper, sure, we put on some font size, and we also put on some padding. Okay, now padding we can, okay, for the wrapper we don't need the padding, right? So for wrapper we will only need the height and the width, right? So here we can write height, and it can be, okay, same thing, you can do this. We should have some width over here. Okay, and it should be somewhat around, let's say I take it as 90. Okay, so this is done for the wrapper. So this is like how in the browser it should look like. So for those we are putting these inside the media screen. Okay, so this is done for the wrapper. Next it should also be done for the game detail, for the controls as well, right? So we'll write game details, and inside the game details we have some padding, and we also have some font size. Okay, so I'll keep the font size as 1 rem, and I'll keep the padding as, let's say, 15 and 6. Okay, now after this we go for the controls. Okay, now controls also, so it should be in a form of a flex, so we'll just mention flex. Okay, and we can also mention some padding and some font size. Okay, so here the font size I keep it as 1 rem, and the padding I keep it as 15 px, let's say, and 0. Okay, so these are all according to my requirement which I need. So now the CSS is done. Now let's save it off and then quickly see it how in our browser it look like. Fine, so we go ahead and save this off. And what next we have to do now, this style3.css file, we need to mention it right over here inside our CSS link, right, in our HTML. So here I'll mention it style3.css. Okay, so you have to mention your file name, whatever file name you have created for the CSS. Okay, so again save it off, and then we go to the browser and we refresh it. So now when we refresh it, now if you see there is a flex which is coming up on the screen. Okay, let me lower the size a bit so that it's right. Fine, so this is what comes up, the flex of comes up in the screen, which is not actually overflowing it, because we have overflown in the CSS we have put the overflow as hidden. Okay, now there is a black color background coming up, and the whole background is like light blue. Okay, and then we got the score as well over here, the high score as well, and then we got the controls for which the CSS have been done. So these are the 4 controls, and these are the score and high score, and this is actually what wherein our the whole game will come up. Right, now next is what we have to do is we have to go and make the game functional. Right, we have to go ahead and make the game functional. So for that we need to go with the JavaScript. Right, we have to create the JavaScript in it so that the game becomes functional. Right, So let's start off with the various. Let's take a variable. Let's say I take a const and playboard. Okay, now what we need to do is, like, we need to, from the HTML, we need all these things in our JavaScript, right, to make it functional. So how you can select it from HTML? We can select it with the help of the query selector, right? So for that, what you can do, you can write playboard and then you can write document query selector, right? With the help of that in the JavaScript, you can select your elements from the HTML. Okay, so queries, and I have to work with the playboard, so I'll write dot playboard so that I can make my CSS functional. Okay, next we should also have the score element, a high score element, and we also should have the controls. So I'll write score here. I'll write the name of the CSS which we have taken. So for that, we'll just write dot score. Okay, then we can go for the high score. So and here inside this, you can mention again the CSS element which we have taken, that is high underscore high dash score. Okay, and next, last one, we can define it for the controls. So we can write controls and here you can write dot controls. Okay, now these are done. Now next what we have to do is we have to put some conditions, that is we have to use the let keyword inside the JavaScript for, like, the game, when the game is over, for the food, for setting up the intervals, like for setting up from the score to 0, these things we need to do. So we use the let keyword for these things. So I'll use it for first the game over. Okay, so here I'll keep it as false, then only the game will start, right? So I'll keep this as false. Next, I'll keep the food, let's say food x, food y, so that it moves to the, x-axis and y-axis, there is movement. Okay, and we also take, let the snake also should have the x-axis and y-axis movements. I'll take snake x. Okay, take this as, let's say 5, and snake y, I'll take that also as 5. Okay, next we should have the velocity, that will help me. Let's take as velocity x as 0, and then velocity y for y-axis also as 0. Okay, then next, what else we can take? So for food, game, snakes, these we have taken. Next, for the body of that particular snake we can also take, so we can write snake body, and snake body we can set it up to like a bracket, so that JavaScript knows that it also has a snake body, right? And then after that we can take a score, we can set up the score equal to 0. Fine. And what else? We can also set the interval IP. So I'll set interval. Okay, these things are now done. Now next, what we can do, first of all, we have to get the high score from the local storage, right? So get the high score from local storage. So for that, what we have to do, so I write let high score, and after this, where to get it from the local storage, because when you play the game it will come up from the local storage, right? So I'll write get it from local storage. So how to get, we'll use the get item. Okay, and what is the item? The item is high score, right? So you need to mention the same name which you have mentioned in your CSS, right? And then okay, and then the high score element. So the high score element dot, let's say I'll take the inner text, which should be high score. So that means whenever you play the game and when the game is over, the high score will get updated, okay, at that moment. So here we can write colon and we can write high score, so that it gets updated whenever you end the game, right? And okay, now next what you have to do is we have to also update the position of the food which is kept inside the game so that the snake can eat. So I'll write const and then let me take like update food, okay, position. That's the variable name for it, which will update the food position, and it will be like the movement, right? So I'll keep this, okay, and inside this, so let's say we pass some random variable to or some random positions for it. So let's say I keep it as from 1 to 30. So passing a random number from 1 to 30, okay, this is as food position. Okay, so how to pass on the number for random position of the food? So for that you need to take food x, which we have taken it right over here, that is let food x, right? So food x we will take it, and random variable since we are using over here, so we need to use the math.floor. So I'll write math.floor and math.random, okay, which will help me to select random numbers from 1 to 30 which we have given, okay. And should be okay. Now same thing we need to do with the food y, okay, math.floor dot random, okay. Now this is done. Now once this is done, what we have to do is now we should have a game over as well inside the JavaScript, okay. So for that what we can do, we can take another variable that is const and it will handle the game over part, right? So I can write handle game over, okay. Now inside this this will be like we need to set off whenever the page is being refreshed, the game should restart, okay. So here we can write clear the timer and reload the page. That means whenever the game is over, it will refresh the timer and it will reload the page so that we can actually play the game again, okay. So everything will be like reset, fine. Now once this is done, for resetting it, so we have to take care of the ID, that is the interval ID which we have taken, that is right over here, right? So this interval ID will come up, it will take place here. So what we need to do is we have to clear the interval, whenever the game is over. So I'll write clear interval, and then inside this we'll write set interval ID. That's it. Okay, and what should be the alert? There should be some alert coming up when the game is over. So that alert, what we can write game over, right? And like press OK to replay, something like this, like we had seen in our game. So I'll write game over, press OK to replay. Okay. Now after this, what we also need to do, we have to reload the screen, right? So I'll write Asian reload. Okay, this is done. Now next comes up, we have to go for the directions. So what directions we have to make them functional as well. So let's say we have a variable const, okay, and then let's change direction. Okay, so inside the change direction, what thing we need to take for in order to change the direction? Here for direction we have taken the variable velocity x and velocity y, right? So we need to work with the velocity x and velocity y in order to make the directional function. That means when the snake is trying to move left, it should, when you are pressing the left key, it should move left. When you are pressing the right key, it should move right. Same with the up and down, right? So here, let me comment this out, changing the velocity value, okay, and it should be based on key pressed, right? So whatever key you press, according to that the snake should move in the left, right, or up and down direction. Okay, so for this we have some if conditions. So inside if, let's say we write, we have taken key for that. So let's say when it's equal to arrow up, that means you have pressed the up arrow in the keyboard, okay, and at the same time the velocity so arrow up, that means it should move in the upward direction, that means y axis. So velocity y we will take at that point of time. So velocity y is not equal to -1. Okay, when this condition satisfies, what will happen? It will get inside the if condition and it will say velocity x is 0 over here and velocity y is set to -1. Okay, now we'll also have else if. So there will be multiple conditions, right, for arrow up, arrow left, arrow right, and then the arrow down, right? So we just have to interchange those things, like the velocity x and velocity y values. So else if, let's take the condition over here as e dot key and will be equal to, let's say we take as arrow down. Okay, now arrow down, and now if it's going down, then again the velocity y will come up in the place. So we'll write velocity y and it should be not equal to -1. So then only the condition will satisfy. So once these conditions are true, so what will happen? It will get inside it, and then we need to change the values. So first the velocity x will be 0 and then velocity y will be set to -1. Okay, now this is done for the arrow down key. Same thing we need to do for right and then for the left. Okay, so when it comes to right, then velocity x will takes place, right? So I'll write else if, and inside the bracket I'll write e dot key and is equal to arrow left. Okay, arrow left, and same will do it for the velocity x. And after this, not to save time, I'll just do this. Okay, so after setting up the velocity, okay, we need to also set up the direction, right? Like the direction of the game. We need to check like if the snake hit the food, then at that point of time the position of the body of the snake should increase, right? So for that, what we have used the push function over here, so that it gets pushed into the array, and then the size of the snake will increase. Okay, so these things needs to be done. So once these are done, let's save it. Now once again, each and every explanation of each and every line of code, you'll get it. Okay, I'll put a link in the description and in the comment box itself, wherein you can get the source code, wherein you can get the detailed explanation. Okay, and you can copy the source code from there and you can try it yourself. You can make your additions over there. Now once we save this, let's go ahead and refresh it out and let's check how it's working, right? So save this properly, and also make sure that this snake.js file, you are including it right over here in the source, which we didn't. So here we write snake.js file so that our JavaScript also works properly. Okay, now here this is the screen. We'll refresh it off again. So now once we refresh it, you see this, we got the snake and we got the food as well. Now let's see if it's working or not. So here, with the help of the right and left arrow key, I'm just trying to play it. So yes, it did work. And here it says game over. Now if I click on and then start it again. Okay, so this is how you can make your own game and play it. Okay, so once again, the whole source code I'm giving it in the description box as well as in the comment section. You can take it from there. Okay, and each line explanation will also be mentioned over there. If you have any issues, you can comment down in the comment section, and then I'll quickly rectify your issues and help you out.